Good morning, everybody. I'm the guy who didn't post his Artificer build yet, and today we're looking at the Year of the Dragon, as well as some of the new stuff that's coming out with the launch of the Year of the Dragon for Dungeons & Dragons Online. For those that don't know, this is the 50th anniversary of Dungeons & Dragons in total, so DDO is celebrating with a bunch of free stuff. So let's take a look at what you get. So because of the Year of the Dragon celebration, they're going to be giving away one thing every single month. So every month of the year, they're going to be giving away something for free. They're also doing something next February, so it's technically 13 months, but don't worry about that. And the first thing we get with the beginning of the year is Dragon Lord coming out on the 28th of February, which is also the anniversary of Dungeons & Dragons Online, which is very, very cool. Now, bear in mind, the reason why they're giving it away is because Dragon Lord's not free. You will have to buy it if you don't claim it. So if you're watching this video right now, what you should do is remember, in February, log in once this comes out after the 28th. I'm assuming it'll probably be for most of the month of March. Just make sure you claim the Dragon Lord so you get it. It's great. I would highly recommend it. It's going to be very, very powerful once it actually comes out. Super good. We'll talk about that later. And then for the rest of the year, they got extra rewards. In March, we have the Gift of the Silver Dragon, which is just a free adventure pack. In April, there's an X-Pack cache. It looks like it's going to be a free expansion, although we don't know the exact details. In May, we got a dragon mount, a green dragon mount, which hopefully it'll have a great animation and look good. I don't know. We're going to see. Dragon Hatchling Pet, also free. Blue Dragon Wings is a cosmetic you can attach to all of your characters. A Raiders reward box. My speculation is that this will be you get a item from the any dragon themed raid in the game. You can pick one. An outfit. Horde of Discovery. We have no details, so we'll find out. Pick of the Dragon's Lair. No details. Footprints, which people love. Armor of the Dragon Cult. And finally, the 1 year after the Dragon Lord, we will be getting the Dragon Disciple archetype. Now, we don't know what this is at all. Dragon Disciple in pen and paper is a prestige class that requires you to have the ability to cast arcane spells innately, and also like a sorcerer or a bard, technically a warlock as well, without having to prepare them, as well as being able to speak Draconic. And the idea is you basically become a disciple of the dragon, where you slowly get scales covering your skin and become more Draconic to the point where you become a half dragon, effectively, gaining strength, claw attacks, and all sorts of other stuff. So what's it going to be? I don't know. Bard, sorcerer, warlock is what I would assume, but we'll see when that actually comes out. And that is the cool set of rewards. So, as I said, February 28th, you'll be able to get the Dragon Lord, and let's talk about what exactly that is. So, Dragon Lord. I've gone over Dragon Lord before. If you haven't seen the first video I did on it, basically it's a new, different type of archetype that is all themed around dragons and making it a strong support class, although it is just strong on its own. Generally, it's about tactics DCs, knocking targets down, all this other stuff. It's very powerful. I'm just going to go over some of the changes from the first preview, things they adjusted. The first thing is they made it so the trances are no longer bound by any alignment restriction. You just can't use the strength trance while raging. The benefit of this is it means that not everyone is pigeonholed into one build. Rage can give you, I think it's like almost 30 points of extra strength if done properly. And so the benefit here is that it means that you don't have to always be raging to use this, because you can't be raging. So it kind of puts a split. Are you raging and using a different trance, or are you not raging and using the might in order? So it's interesting. It'll make some different things you can do in the end game. A bunch of balance stuff. And mostly, the Battlefield Tactician now makes it that when you sunder enemies, you make the monster vulnerable to the element of your Draconic soul. So you get to pick a dragon color, say you pick red for fire, and then you sunder an enemy. Now that enemy takes fire damage even if it didn't before, like a fire elemental or an iron golem. And this works for all your friends. So let's say you're pairing a Dragon Lord with a cold sorcerer. Well, the sorcerer gets the ability to bypass immunities at level 12, but before then, you get this at level 6. So you can go ahead and just start wailing away. You can also multi-class with it. It's pretty cool, and I'm a huge fan of that. They also changed Visage of Terror's cooldown, or not the cooldown, but they changed Visage of Terror to now use Intimidate for your DC, as opposed to it being Barbarian level and Constitution, which in almost all cases is going to be dramatically easier to get. So, pretty big buff to Ravager. Dragon Lord's looking really, really good. Very excited to see it actually come out. The next change I want to talk about is Epic Destiny Refresh. They are making a bunch of changes to the Epic Destinies. They have a bunch of changes in here. The most important ones that I kind of want to touch on is actually, we're going to talk about the AoE change first. AoE range attacks is like one of the big ones. Now, a lot of these attacks are going to be area of effect. So all of these attacks here, you're going to shoot a bow, and it's going to hit a guy and do an area around that target. I spent all day today leveling with a bow character, and it felt so good. I never got frustrated because I got surrounded by monsters. I never had difficulties with like, oh no, there's like 30 monsters in a room, it takes me an hour. You could just use a few AoE attacks and start to spread out your damage and then take everything down. Completely amazing, absolutely fantastic. Just, oh my gosh, it felt so good. So you're gonna have Inferno Shot and Final Strike from Arcane Archer here. The Paladin Cleaves are going to have ranged versions. Artificer gets 2 ranged cleaves. Horizon Walker gets Scatter Shot. Deepwood Stalker gets Headshot, which is an automatic crit. AoE. Divine Vessel works for Clerics and Favored Souls. And then in Epic Destinies, we've got Arrow of Discord, Dire Shot, Legendary Rally, Shadow Strike, and Pin. And Legendary Rally is massive. That's a massive amount of damage. So I'm very excited for all this, which is cool. Important thing you have to know about the AoE damage attacks for ranged is that they don't actually use they don't like pierce, so you can't use improved precise shot, and they also don't repeat. So if you have a repeating crossbow or an inquisitive, they don't shoot multiple times. I tested this on the Lamannia when they did do that the first time, and they were crazy busted. You could pretty much go into a room and just use one of these repeating abilities or use one of these auto crits, and whoops, everything in the room is dead, and it was basically just like, you know, it trivialized a lot of content. So they have turned that down so it doesn't do that. However, to make sure it's clear, there's now an animation. So if you're inquisitive, your character will actually like raise one crossbow and then fire with only one of them. And same thing, your guy will like slap the side of the crossbow if you're using a repeater and then fire this big shot. So it's pretty cool. They have some nice animations, and it's kind of exciting to use. And it was so fun. I'm excited right now to make this video because of how much fun I had all day playing around with this. In fact, I'm going to show this to you in a second. But first, I want to talk about the tumble changes. So they just talked about the design philosophy here, where basically before you could tumble whenever you wanted, and then you just like press the button and you keep tumbling, and it made you go faster and faster. And essentially, they just don't like the players having that much speed, but they do want to keep the tumbling in check. So they changed how tumble works. So basically, to put it simply, my character here, I can tumble whenever I want. So I can move forward and I can tumble. So I press this button and boom, I tumble. However, I can't do that all the time. You have tumble charges, which you can see by blocking. Myself and other people have asked for the charges to be visible, but all the time, but you can see them by blocking, at least right here. Now, the way that this works is for each charge that you have, you can tumble. So I press forward, I tumble, I lose a charge, and I get a charge back every 8 seconds. So I can only tumble once every 8 seconds, or I can use all 3 and then wait for them to recharge, whatever it is. This might seem like a definite nerf, because before you could just kind of tumble everywhere, but now you can just tumble a little bit for movement speed, but it has combat utility. Now, of course, not everybody was tumbling to get out of dangerous effects, like a Vengeance Reaper circle pops up on the ground and you have to get out of it and you go boom and you just tumble out of it. I did that, but not everybody was doing that. However, they've made tumbling a lot more lucrative. Now, whenever you tumble, you take your tumble score, minus 22, and you add it to your reflex save. So if you tumble, boom, look at that. For 1 second, I get to add my tumble score to my reflex save. This means if you're playing on hardcore, you're a low-life character, you're a cleric rogue, and your reflex save sucks, you can drink a tumble potion, you can put points in a tumble, and then when you get to that trap, boom, you can roll through it and usually make your save by comparison, which means by actively engaging with the mechanic of tumbling, you can keep yourself safe when moving through trapped or dangerous areas. However, that's not all. If you've ever played like Dark Souls or any game like that, in those games, dodging is super impactful. Dodge rolling to get out of the way is so good. Think of a game like Bloodborne where you can't even block. Your character just has to jump, dash left and right. Well, in this game, yeah, you can tumble out of the way, and that is kind of nice. However, when you tumble, now, for that same 1 second that you get the bonus reflex saves, it also gives you 95% dodge chance. So my character has 611 effective hit points, but when I tumble, 10,000. Because my character gets a 95% chance to avoid all attacks for 1 second. It's the closest thing you can get to immunity frames. The reason is because dodge is hard capped at 95%, so you can't get higher than that, because 100% dodge would be kind of bad. And so this means that, say you're playing in a group and all of a sudden the boss comes to an aggro on you and you can't deal with it, right when it's about to swing, tumble, and then boom, you took no damage from the attack. Oh no, it's you accidentally pulled aggro on the Doom Reaper, tumble, and you're all set. Are you tanking a big raid boss like the Baylor in the end of Fires of Morgrave, and he's about to do his lightning whip attack? Tumble, and now you take no damage from the attack because you just dodged it. It ignores the dodge cap as well. So if you're in like full plate or whatever, it still gives you that 95. So it's very, very cool. Can you still use it for running around? Of course. You can go tumble, tumble, and tumble and go a little bit faster. But for now, the idea is that it's meant to be more of a utility. You're supposed to use the tumble to kind of get away from some of those dangerous situations. And it's like 100,000 times better than before. Now, I just want to touch on the ranged combat thing, just in case you hadn't seen it. So I'm just going to load over a monster here, because some people hadn't seen the effect yet. But basically, several attacks, such as Inferno Shot or Exalted Shot, are now area of effect. So see these kobolds? Guess what? Boom, I hit them all with this big AoE. And it has a visual. So Inferno Shot is now Fireball Arrow. It explodes twice for some reason. I think it's a visual bug. But you fire it, and then everything is now on fire. And it's a huge AoE. This does not have a saving throw, because it's not a spell. It's just an attack. It's like using a cleave with a melee attack. It just hits multiple targets. This is exactly the same thing. And I can use that as well as like Exalted Shot, and now I'm just pulsing out AoE. Look at all the AoE I have on my ranged character. I can do it while moving, I can do it while jumping. I can do AoE into AoE and to tumble backwards for the dodge into AoE. I can just be a lot more flexible with my attacks. And then when there's only one target left, I can then, hit him with a mark and then start going in with all my single target hits and blasting them away. So it's pretty cool. It's a really, really, really good change, both the ranged and the tumble. And I leveled this character all day. So I only got up to level 11 because I was just testing around and monkeying about with stuff. But for the leveling purpose, this is so unbelievable. I hate leveling ranged characters and it is so unfun. But this, I had no complaints. It was awesome. It felt so good the entire time. As far as the specific build here, you might notice Paladin Ranger. I actually have a build I'm going to be writing specifically for these changes coming out. So when we get the changes, you'll have your build guide. But I'm just waiting to make sure everything is settled before I start putting stuff in stone, because I think that's probably a bad idea. Anyways, so then we go back to the Epic Destiny changes, and they changed a bunch of Epic Destinies to now have AoE attacks. So specifically, the Epic Strikes for Dire Shot is area of effect. So now you have an AoE stun and range on a ranged character. Arrow of Discord is area of effect, which is an AoE stun out of Fatesinger. Shadow Strike is an AoE damage effect. It's not a stun, but it just does a lot of damage. And Pin is now an AoE root, or if the monsters are moving, an AoE dance, which is very, very cool. They also made a couple different changes. In Fatesinger, they made it so that the actual base attack does more damage, and there's a thing that doubles it. So now Strike Accord is actually a reasonable damage spell, which is kind of cool. They just moved some stuff in Magus, nothing really crazy. Other than the base stuff, a lot of stuff is really, really, really impactful. I'm talking about the base stuff that you might have missed since the first video if you haven't seen that one. Rune Arm use is now from the Macrotech, uses highest of Intelligence, Wisdom, or Charisma. So anybody can use Rune Arms much more effectively, and they up the damage, which is fantastic. Exalted Angel has this cool fire form. I personally really like it. Some people hate it. But the big thing is the Turn Undead can now work on any creature during your epic moment, and it instantly kills them. And you get Turn Undead stat per religious lore, and you get more Turn Undead based on the character level from Bane of Undeath. Also, Chain Cure basically never misses now. So as a result, let's just say that Exalted Angel is a lot more powerful now. And so there's a bunch of really good changes. I'm not going to touch on everything here because there's there's some of them that there's just so much. Oh, actually, I do have to touch on this one. Sharadi Champion, they basically entirely rearranged it. So now, one of the biggest problems with Sharadi is if you actually wanted to use it as a caster, because it's supposed to be all about bow and range stuff, but also it's supposed to have charms and illusions and all these other things. Now you can actually do that with the tree because the tier 4 and the tier 3 and the tier 2 now have a bunch of multi-selectors. So you can take either double shot or incorporeality, or you could take extra range damage or something else. Also, track now works so that it reduces enemy saving throws, so you can debuff things with your range attacks or with spells. You can get imbued ice if you don't happen to have throwing weapons for flicking whirling wrists. So honestly, they made Sharadi Champion also a ton better. However, they did make a big change. Hunt's End is now a ranged attack that deals damage and automatically crits. This used to be the Epic Strike, where you would press Hunt's End and then you'd press another ability, and it would make that attack crit with extra damage. So you could stack two different effects and basically have a insanely hard-hitting skill. That's how you saw people in my video where I posted where I had over 100,000 damage on one shot. That's how you would do that. Now you won't be able to do that anymore. This is just a separate attack, which is a bit of a nerf to the ranged characters. However, for me personally. I found that clunky. In a lot of cases, you would press Hunt's End, and then due to lag, due to a delay in the attacks actually going out, you would oftentimes not actually get the attack to land with the attack you wanted to use it on. You would sometimes just whiff it and the Hunt's End would go away. I found it very clunky to use. And on top of that, it was basically mandatory because nothing else even compared. It was just better than everything else in the entire game. Now, since it's separate, Hunt's End is still powerful. It still does a ton of damage. You'll be hitting, as opposed to 100,000, somewhere between 40 and 45,000, which is still pretty good with a ranged attack. But on top of that, you can now instead get a different Epic Strike. You can go ahead and still get Pin and have an AoE stun or slow. You can get Shadow Strike and have the sneak attack damage on hit and have another big AoE. You can get Dire Shot and have like a giant stun, which is pretty sweet. So you have a lot of flexibility in terms of your Epic Strike, so you don't just have to sit on Hunt's End. And for me, I think this is a good change. Some people were like, hey, if they're changing this, they should change it so Fury of the Wild is different. And like, honestly, I'd be okay with that, but I don't know. I don't really care too much. But overall, I'm stoked for a lot of these changes. The meta is going to change a lot. Just generally, a lot of things are more fun now in epics, so a lot of characters will be way more fun to play. You're going to have a lot of different builds. You can see people building a lot of different ways, so it's going to be quite fun. The AoE stuff is just out of this world, and Dragonlord rules. I love Dragonlord. I would have played more of it on the preview, but there's a lot of bugs. There's way too many bugs. I bug reported them. All the things I bug reported from the first preview got fixed, and so hopefully all the things I report in this preview will get fixed either before the next preview or before it releases, because there's a lot of bugs, but it's really, really fun. So, yeah, this patch looks good. So to recap, Year of the Dragon, Dragonlord archetype coming out and all this other stuff, you will have to redeem it. There'll be an NPC in the Hall of Heroes you talk to. When it comes out, I'll make a guide on how to redeem all this stuff, so you'll be able to see that. But there's going to be a guy you talk to starting on February 28th who will give you all the stuff, and you can use that right there right away. Dragonlord and a whole bunch of other things. I cannot wait for the mount. Green Dragon mount. I hope it looks good. I hope it looks good. I'm pretty hopeful, but, you know, we'll see exactly how that goes. And Dragon Disciple, don't know anything about that. Hopefully we'll get some news as time crawls forward. And yeah, bow changes. Holy moly, bow changes. Look at the AoE. It's beautiful. Look at it. Oh, and I can tumble, move around.